Hey, how's it going? Ron here. Just wanted to share something I was thinking about earlier today. So, in the late 90s, early 2000s, I was playing with a guy who shall remain nameless, but he was from a pretty popular band back in the mid 90s, and he had decided he was going to go solo and had answered an ad that I had put out. And so I ended up playing with this guy. It was an exciting thing. I saw that this guy had some previous notoriety. This guy would tell stories about famous bands that he was actually friends with, he toured with, and I was just starstruck. There was a lot of really cool possibility in this situation to my then young and naive mind. He sat down with me and said, I'll never forget this. He said, I'm not trying to make art here. I'm trying to create songs that can be played on the radio. And at the time I thought, wow, that sounds fantastic. Yeah, whatever. I had never had an experience. I was trying to get to a higher level than just local type notoriety. And so it all sounded great to me. But after a while, there was something that just wasn't clicking, and we went our separate ways. So fast forward a couple years, I'm living in Georgia, and I had a buddy who was in a pretty popular Detroit metal band. He said, hey, this producer is working with our band. He wants to make some demos with us, but our drummer just moved to Florida. Too bad you don't still live in Michigan. I said, yeah, that's a drag. Yeah, I'd definitely jump on that situation if I was still living in Michigan. So I happened to mention it to my wife at the time, and she said, well, why don't you just commute? Why don't you drive to Michigan? And that sounds like a good situation to take advantage of, give it a try for a little while. We can make it work. You'll just have to drive from Georgia to Michigan. So I joined this band, and things were going great. We did a lot of gigs around Detroit. Some great shows from those days, I remember, and really cool guys, friendships I still maintain to this day. But then we went in the studio with this famous producer, and this guy was a big name. He was not just some sort of famous, he was a big name, Grammys and everything. This producer wanted to turn this band into a pop band. And I remember at the time, I went to the pre-existing members and I said, hey, take it for what it's worth, but I'm a fan of you guys coming in to this band, and now I'm playing with you guys, and maybe just something to think about. I would hate to see you guys do this. You're changing your whole sound. You're not going to be who you were. Your fans are going to abandon you possibly over this. Maybe you'll get some new fans in it, but just something you want to think about. Well, we went back and forth about this, and long story short, I got fired from the band. And, in hindsight, I understand, hey, I wasn't with the program, and this was a big opportunity for them. And it just hit me like a ton of bricks that this life is short, and if you're not doing your own thing, you're probably going to be doing somebody else's thing. And you better make sure that that's something you're going to be okay with. Because God forbid you don't want to look back and say, man, I was just too afraid to do my own thing. There's something that is so liberating about, hey, I was doing somebody else's thing before, now I'm doing my own thing. There's a huge shift that happens when that takes place, and not just a professional shift, but a personal one as well. Probably more profoundly a personal shift. It translates into all areas of your life. The point being, you want to be as much you as you're capable of being, and that's a lifelong process. We're always stripping away things that we don't need, or things that get in between us and our truest expression. There's so much pressure to copy And most people do that. Most people see a famous figure or someone who's more comfortable in their skin than they are, and they just copy that. But the point is to get comfortable in your own skin, and you'll create things that are much more you that way, in my opinion. I get it. It's a really risky thing to put yourself out there, to go for it, so to speak, to do what you dream of doing. But it gets easier. It's definitely something that with practice, you will stop focusing on the idea of self-consciousness, which, in my opinion, self-consciousness is the enemy. You need to forget yourself. You just think about your work, think about what you're here to do. That puts you into a much more resourceful frame of mind, and you'll be more inclined to take risks. And as I said, that's part of the process, is making mistakes and trying to learn from those mistakes. The faster we can hit that reset button after failure, the faster we get back on track and we can make it work for us. Someone once said there's no such thing as failure, there's only lessons. And there's a lot of truth to that, a lot of wisdom in that. I think about some of these videos I make, and when I started making them, it was just not natural at all. It still isn't. I still struggle with, I'm an introvert at heart. I push myself constantly to be extroverted. It would be so easy for me to be the hermit guy who creates things and puts them out but doesn't really put oneself out there. But I make the effort to do these things. There's a lot of times I'll watch these videos and I'll just be like, dude, what were you thinking here? But I learn, and I take that information, and so much of what we're learning is what not to do. That's just as helpful as what to do. You know, risks can become calculated risks, and then calculated risks can be lessons. Lessons can be plans. Plans can be strategy. Strategy can be success. You know, it's a process, and the process never ends. You're the one that gets to decide. That's the point of it all, is if you don't make your own plan, someone else likely will. And I think it's safe to say that most of us want to be masters of our own destinies, and most of us want to think of ourselves as our masters of our own destinies. Most of us are not. Most of us are just responding throughout life and reacting. And to take a more proactive approach to one's purpose in life is the beginning of happiness and fulfillment. I think about the great Joseph Campbell and what he used to say about what people aren't looking for is so much the meaning of life. They're looking for the experience of being alive. And I think that sums it up perfectly. Those moments when we are in the zone and we're experiencing those states of flow, as they call it, it just doesn't get any better than that. And really, it's just as simple as just starting, just taking a first step and knowing obstacles and mistakes are part of it. Using those obstacles to our advantage. You know, let's say you get in a fight with somebody you love. That fight is an opportunity for better communication. It could be a fight or it could be an opportunity. And all these things that we don't see coming in life that we respond to is, oh, that sucks. Maybe it doesn't suck. Maybe it's an opportunity for something else. And the fact is, that's life. It's going to suck. And if you're always fighting life when it sucks, you're missing those opportunities. You're missing the opportunity to learn from it. You're missing the opportunity to resolve something, perhaps. It's so easy for so many of us to not pursue our lives' callings and just be that armchair quarterback, you know, the person that sits in judgment of everything they see, never doing anything himself, but always judging everything else. And when those judgments come our way, perhaps we take them a little too much to heart. Well, the fact is, that has nothing to do with us and our work. There's always going to be critics, there's always going to be haters. It has nothing to do with our journeys, with our purpose. We need to just get to our work. Whatever is standing between us and doing the work that we are here to do in this life, we need to ignore it. It's irrelevant. It has nothing to do with what we're doing. Everybody's got an opinion. You know what they say about opinions. Opinions are like diets. You have to be very selective about what you take in. At the end of the day, the thing that matters most is your own personal principles and the things that you should know better than anyone else what you're setting out to do. You have just as much right to do this as anyone else. And the only thing that's stopping you is the fear that you're going to be laughed at or dismissed or scoffed at. You need to get over that, because you will. Spoiler alert, you will. And it shouldn't matter. That's a tricky thing. There's no need to not be sensitive. Sensitivity is a great thing. You need to be sensitive to your surroundings and to the things that you're attempting to do, and you want to remain human. But having a filter is much better than a thick skin, in my book. I don't think vulnerability is a negative thing. It's great to see more humanity in the world rather than more thick skin and callousness and cynicism and all these things that really, at the end of the day, are just protecting us from criticism. Wherein what we can really do is just have better filters and say, hey, that criticism's coming my way, but I only allow certain criticisms and praise. You know, that's the thing. Criticism, praise. Only allowing certain criticism, certain praise to affect you, to only letting so much of it in and not needing it other than to learn, to tweak what you're doing. So I encourage you to just get started, or to keep going, or to hit the reset button, so to speak. Wherever you are in your journey, the resistance is going to come from without and within. But we need to just keep going and don't stop. Learn, reevaluate, apply the lessons, keep on keeping on. And if you ever need a sympathetic ear or someone to share some victories with, or just to reach out, say, hey, hit me up. I love to hear from you. And I wish you the best. Take care.